Hey everybody, welcome back to the I Play 2 podcast. I'm your host, Rob Adler. This week, former college softball player Nikki Gentile joins the show. In high school near San Francisco, she was the Alhambra Female Athlete of the Year. Nikki went to the University of Iowa playing multiple positions before transferring to Coe College, where, as a senior, she led the Iowa Athletic Conference in home runs and stolen bases, and also won a conference title. After graduation, Nikki spent nearly a decade coaching at the high school and college levels, including losing only once in conference play at Solano Community College over 2+ seasons. Her grandfather, Jim Gentile, was a multi-time All-Star in the 1960s with the Baltimore Orioles and once hit a grand slam in back-to-back innings. Nikki, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. So how you doing today?
Doing great. Just on summer break here, just kind of soaking up my first year of teaching.
How did you make the transition from coaching to teaching?
When you really think about it, transition's so easy. They go hand in hand. I love relationships. That is the biggest thing. And even when I think back to what kind of coach I was totally more of a relationship coach than an X's and O's type. So I love getting to know the kids. I love teaching them. I love seeing growth. That's what I'm all about.
As a coach or a teacher, how important is it to communicate your message knowing your audience might be different from person to person?
The biggest thing is you always have to meet people where they are. And you're right, people might be at different places and might interpret messages differently and learn differently. And that's your job as a coach, as a teacher, to get to know your players, your students in a way where you can communicate in an effective and efficient way for them. So it's really important.
When you mention meeting the player or the student, could you kind of elaborate what you mean by that?
Everyone is in a different headspace and they really interpret things in a different way. And like you might be able to communicate really bluntly and specifically to one, or you might be able to just say one word to another and they understand exactly what you mean. And it's just truly meeting them where they are so that both of you can be on the same page and have an understanding.
I'm definitely more on the blunt side, I'll admit that.
Me too. It comes really natural for me.
So taking a little bit of a step back here, how did you get into softball?
I actually played every other sport growing up. My first sport was track. I am really, really fast. I would compete all over the state in track meets up until high school. And actually, I stopped because it would make me so nervous. I would get sick before races. And my dad was like, all right, this is kind of enough. And he had tried and tried. Why don't you try softball? You probably like it. He just never really pressured me. But every year he would ask me. And it wasn't until 6th grade, I went and watched one of my friends play in her rec league championship. And I'll never forget because she played for the Detroit Tigers. As soon as the game was over, I looked at my dad. I'm like, all right, I'll play. And we went straight to Big Five and he bought me a glove instantly. And that was it.
When you were watching that softball game with your friend, what made it click in your head that this is something I want to go play?
My friend looked like she was having so much fun. And I just thought, I should try this. I think I'd be pretty good. My dad wants me to play. Like, why not? I'm not sure why I fought it for so long anyways, to be honest.
When you first started playing, how did your love of the game continue to grow?
I'm really competitive. And when I first started, I got so much better so fast. And it was so motivating to see my improvement and just to see my success. And I'd played rec ball through junior high. And then 8th grade, I started playing travel ball. And the travel ball team that I joined, they were like, you could play this in college. My coaches were telling me this at the end of my 8th grade year. And I thought, all right, this is my ticket. Like, this is how I'm going to be able to go get a degree. And so that's just how I looked at it. And it almost became business-like, probably too much sometimes, but that's what motivated me, really.
With a bit of hindsight, did the business aspect at all take away from the fun of playing the game?
Oh, absolutely. When I started getting recruited my sophomore year of high school about big-time schools, it was a lot of pressure. It was old school, and I can't even imagine it now with social media because I would just get letters in the mail. They would stack up and we would talk as a family and talk finances and like, can we do this? And the pressure of where I was going to choose. And I played for big time travel ball teams where everybody on my team, it was D1 or bust. If I could go back, I wish someone would have guided me I wish I would have been more informed with my choice instead of you have to play at the highest level with the biggest money no matter what.
Since we're talking about the recruiting process, how many schools were coming after you and what led you to make the decision to go to Iowa?
I had a lot of schools. I'd sent out my DVD of my skills video to over 100 schools. And I mean, I had hundreds and hundreds of bites. Just even if a school saw me playing on an opposite field, they would come and watch me. But the biggest schools recruiting me were University of Maryland, University of Iowa. There was a lot of D1s in California, like Cal State schools, but I had already decided in my mind there was no way I was going to school in California. I had an official visit to St. Mary's, which is in Moraga, just right down the road. And my dad, he was so excited, like frothing at the mouth. Oh, she's going to be so close. I'm going to see every game. And I was like, yeah, I looked at him like, there's no way I'm going here. So I had a lot of options and a lot of D2 options too. But we chose Iowa because it was the biggest, grandest school, and they offered me a fantastic scholarship. It matched both qualms, so it was kind of like a no-brainer.
How come you decided you didn't want to go to school in California? Because there are quite a few very good softball universities there.
I was so stubborn and independent, and I just wanted to get away. It was like I wanted to prove to myself and everybody else I could do this on a big stage and be away from everybody, and I didn't need anybody. And it was quite the opposite. I truly don't have a really good answer, but I'll be frank, it was so dead set in my mind. There was no way that I was going to be staying there. And I wish I could go back and really think that through.
Kind of sounds like me when I graduated college and was determined to leave where my family was, and I did too. And looking back, I wonder if that was the right decision.
I do feel that way, but it is what it is.
I have a t-shirt that says that.
It's true.
We'll get back to Iowa in a minute, but you were a really, really good player in high school. What are some of your favorite high school memories?
What I really liked was when I played for my high school team, that was a really relaxed version of me. There was no pressure. Our team was pretty good. We had good chemistry. I loved all the girls on the team every year. And I remember, like, as a freshman, all the seniors were my friends. We would go to parties together. We were all really tight. And I think having that balance of high school where I could just relax and just play and just do. I played shortstop in high school, like in travel ball. I was really an outfielder and was recruited as an outfielder. So I got different looks. And then travel ball was just a different type of pressure. And I mean, I had good coaches too, but I had really great teammates that pushed me and girls that went on to play at fantastic big time universities and excelled, and they made me a lot better. But also my high school team was really good, but also we won a lot on both sides.
For listeners who might not be familiar with the Bay Area, could you kind of talk a little bit more about the area that you grew up in?
Martinez is in the greater East Bay, which 40 minutes from San Francisco, no traffic. You could take a ferry boat, you could take BART, you could take train. It's all really relatively close. I grew up going to the city so much. But my high school, we weren't the biggest in the area. There's some other bigger high schools, but softball was a well-known sport at my high school.
Did you ever go surfing at Mavericks or maybe do something crazy like try to rollerblade down Lombard Street?
I have not. And it's funny. A misconception about Californians is we all know how to surf, but I have never surfed before. I don't know if I ever will, but no, I haven't done anything like too crazy like that.
Did you ever get into the rollerblading craze? Because when you were young, that was kind of a big deal in California.
Yep, I had rollerblades. I had all of that. I had a huge obsession with my pogo stick. I would literally bounce around on that thing, like travel everywhere on it.
Pogo stick? Wow, I can't think of anybody that I know as young as you are that knew what a pogo stick was.
I kid you not, I would be on that thing for hours. If there was a world record for how many and I kept track, I know I'm on it.
I love it. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw a pogo stick.
It would be like riding a bike for me. If someone handed me one, it could hold my weight. It's game over. It's so funny, but my aunt has given me gifts my whole life. My parents would joke would break my neck. Like she gave me the rollerblades. She gave me a unicycle. I could ride it for a little bit. That was really hard to try to get down, but the pogo stick, all that stuff, that's from her.
Have you ever seen the red panda who does the unicycle at the halftime games of the NBA?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I couldn't do it now, but when I was in high school, I could ride it for a little bit.
I am so jealous. That's something I've never done.
It's so hard. It's so hard to learn.
Kind of a weird question, but with using, let's say, a pogo stick or riding a unicycle, any things that you took from that that were able to help you in terms of your athletic prowess?
I've always had a really good sense of balance, even now, like as an adult. How I work out now is I'm a total yogi. I do a ton of yoga, a ton of balancing stuff. So I'm sure it helped in some way, shape, or form.
You mentioned earlier that you went to Iowa, and Iowa City is very different than the Bay Area. How much of a culture shock was that for you?
The people are so friendly and nice. On my official visit, it was a football game against Michigan, a night game, and Iowa ended up winning it in overtime, and people stormed the field, and it snowed that day. And I remember I was walking with my teammate Johnny, and it was snowing on us, and I'm like, Johnny, it's snowing right now. And she's, yeah, okay, Nikki, like, no big deal, dude. But it was just such an experience. And I remember my dad telling me, I feel really safe. You going to school here? And that was a big part of the decision-making process because I was looking to go so far away. I was so set on that. And my parents just wanted to make sure that they had a space for comfort and all that. But I thoroughly enjoyed going to school in the state. It was different, of course, but I think the biggest regret is going out there and so many friends still live out there and I don't get to see them near as much. It was a cool experience to live somewhere so much different than where I grew up.
You started a bunch of games as a freshman. For you, what was your highlight of your tenure as a player at Iowa?
I was recruited as an outfielder by Gail Blevins. And then when I got there, the new coaching staff wanted me to play first base. And it was a brand new position for me. And I was working out with a senior teammate of mine, Coach, and we were taking short hops with baseballs. And Coach B threw a short hop and it hit Och in the shin and it broke her shin. That's honestly how I got my start my freshman year because Och was our best hitter. And I know there was one game my freshman year that we won 1-0, and that was because I hit a solo home run. And I led the team or second in home runs in my freshman year too. And I started the season really, really hot. And as the end of Big Ten play, I got less opportunities. I became more like of a DH. And I think for me, the best memory is just my teammates and getting to experience traveling with them and celebrating their successes. That was probably the biggest joy of me playing at Iowa, more than anything that I did on the field, really.
What was the pressure like for you replacing someone who's a key cog at a position you had never really played before?
My freshman year, I was so naive. I didn't really feel it. I was like, all right, well, cool. Like I get to play. And then my sophomore year came and I had this chemistry class that I missed 3 days of practice because it was the only time that that chemistry class was offered and I had to take it. I felt so behind by missing practice for this class I had to take, and it was like I could never play catch up. And that's when for me the pressure came my sophomore year. I felt like I could never get back into the spot that I was in my freshman year. I have to make up for missing and do extra and do this, and it's tough.
Did your coaches understand why you had to miss practice, or was it if you're not going to be here, you're not going to play?
They understood to an extent. They knew obviously I was gone because I was doing this, but they expected me to somehow make up nearly every second of what I missed. And if that meant staying for the whole 4 hours and working on my own, that was truly what they expected of me. And it just always wasn't feasible. I would have more classes and I needed to go to study hall hours or whatever it may be. So it wasn't always possible, but they definitely expected for it to be made up on my own time and for me to figure out what I missed and how I can play catch up.
Although I know you're a part of a team, did you feel a little bit isolated at that point?
Oh, absolutely. There was even one practice where every player plays every position. You get reps at every position. They had already spent 2 full days going through everybody. And I come in and for the last 45 minutes of practice, it's just me doing all the reps at every position while the whole team watched me.
From that experience, when you became a coach, did you ever think back to that and say, I'm not going to do that to any one of my players?
Oh, Rob, I'll be frank. My experience at Iowa, purely as far as like taking into my coaching style, is I learned a lot of how I would never want to treat my athletes, or the environment that I would never want to create. It's good to learn and positive experiences and get takeaways and things that you want to implement. But a lot of that was, okay, I don't ever want it to be like this or have my athletes feel like this.
I would say in a lot of life, whether on an athletic field or not, that we learn more from the negative than the positive in terms of how we want to conduct in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree.
At Iowa, things aren't probably going as well as you hoped. How was the determination made that you were going to transfer? And then where were you looking to transfer before you ended up at Coe?
After my sophomore year, I got no chances. I had a really, really, really tough year. It was my worst year academically. I never was a bad student. It was a bad year for me. And I remember being on the phone and calling my travel ball coach, oh, I want to leave. I'm not happy. I just remember being reassured by all my close people, like, you're so good. They're going to see you. Just keep your head down, keep pushing. There's no way that you're not going to get chances. So I listened and I stayed another year. And then that summer, Iowa high school softball competition is in the summer. So I was, oh, I'll coach, I'll make some money. I became a JV head coach and a varsity assistant at West Branch High School, which is like 20 minutes away from Iowa City. And I was coaching with, her name was Ashley Simon at the time. She's an All-American pitcher who took Coe to the national championship. And she was like, why don't you transfer to Coe? They just lost their right fielder. She dropped out of the school. She was one of their best hitters. They actually need your position. I could give you the coach's number right now and you should transfer. And my ears perked and it was a successful school. They were only like another 20 minutes north. I wouldn't have to uproot my life too much. The next day, Bob Timmons showed up at West Branch High School to meet me and talk with me. And I really liked him. The idea, like I said, sounded really good. And as I got into the financials of it, D3, there's no athletic scholarship, but they had created this type of academic new transfer scholarship for me that was going to cover a ton of finances, which made me feel good too, because like I said, I was on a really good scholarship at Iowa. And at that time, I kind of just was like, do I keep pushing and leave my career to the dust and just focus on my degree? Because that's what I'm truly here for anyways. When I went to tell the Iowa coach, I kid you not, that was the nicest Coach Looper and Coach Bagetta had ever been to me, is when I told them I'm going to leave and I'm not going to come back. And I had told them maybe 2 weeks before school was going to start. So it's not like they could have really done anything with my money instantly, but Looper walked me right down to the compliance office and made sure like my paperwork was completed.
Because there's this perception amongst fans about D3 compared to D1. Could you kind of talk about the competition level?
I think it just depends on the school. When I was at Coe, Madison Woodruff, our pitcher, she was awesome. She threw better than I thought both the pitchers that I played with at Iowa. I thought she had better presence, better mental toughness. She had better command on her ball, just more spin. And she was a small town Iowa girl. So I think Coe really derailed that perception for me too, because even when I was getting recruited, I wouldn't even have blinked at a D3 school. Like they were never in my realm. They're always ranked in the top 25. That program is always so competitive. I think we would have beat the team I played with at Iowa. So it truly doesn't matter. Like there's so many pieces when it comes to finding your athletic, academic, social, everything fit. And I definitely think there's some D3s that can beat some certain D1s. It just depends.
I know Coe College from football because former Super Bowl coach Marv Levy is a Coe College alum. Could you kind of talk to people a little bit more about Coe College? Because I'm not really sure it's that well known for most people.
It's a private liberal arts college located right downtown Cedar Rapids. It's a small community, like people live on the campus. The athletics are really competitive and the coaches are really passionate. And I loved my experience transferring. I love the coaches I played for. Diane Meyer, I will love her to the day I die. Like she took me under her wing and truly cared about me. And it was a time where I really, really needed it. And I will always appreciate her for that. But even if you look up the school, it is so different than even from when I was there. The renovations they have done to the athletic program, they have the skywalk that connects these buildings over the campus road. It is really incredible. And they offer such a good list of majors and they're really known for their nursing program. I went to school with a lot of nurses who are now very successful nurses. And it's just a great school, a great environment. And even if I would have been recruited by them from the beginning, I would have liked it. Such a good experience and a great school.
If the current transfer rules and NIL were around when you were playing in college, do you think you would have ended up at Coe, or would you have looked to go somewhere else?
The transfer portal and me being an ex-college coach, I know exactly what it looks like, how easy it is to access. I would have instantly entered in that after my freshman year. I would have gone probably to another big school because it would have been so easy for another big school to see that I was available and see my stats, and there would be video access. None of that stuff was around when I was in college. If the transfer portal would have been around, I for sure would have utilized it.
From the coaching side of it with the transfer portal, how do you navigate it to find a player that you think would fit where you were at that particular moment?
It's not like the transfer portal gives you a biography of a kid. It's here's their name, here's their contact information, here's the school that they were at. And that's it. It doesn't list their position. It doesn't list what they're studying. For example, when I was at ArtU, our majors are so specific. So I would go and research that girl, A, to find out what position she was, and then B, to see what she's studying. You have to go and do that research. So it's just the portal just tells you who's available. And then once you contact, it's up to the athlete whether they want to pursue you or not.
You mentioned ArtU, and for listeners who don't know, that's the Academy of Art University. Could you kind of talk a little bit more about it? Because I'll be honest, I worked at ESPNU and I know a lot of small colleges and universities, but I had to do a little bit of research because I will admit I wasn't that familiar with it.
It is a Division II school located downtown in the heart of San Francisco. The Academy of Art University actually owns the largest real estate of all of San Francisco because it's spread over 27 blocks. It competes in the Pac-West Conference, which is a Division II, California and Hawaii private universities. Very competitive. I'd say like one of the best T2 conferences in the country in a lot of sports. And we didn't have any athletic facilities, so we would have to drive. Our field was 30 minutes away, no traffic. We practiced in the morning, I'd say 90% of the time because of the girls' schedule and also because of traffic. So like if we wanted to head back downtown from Brisbane, like after practice in the afternoon or like late afternoon, there was times where it would take an hour and a half to get back to downtown. And then I would have my commute back home. People would tell me when I took that job, oh, it's going to be so hard to recruit there. The majors are so limited. But if anything, that was by far what I was most successful at. And when I left that team in a really, really good position, a team that can really build together and be really something. So that's what ArtU is about. It is really unique and it's truly like a university like no other.
When I was reading about ArtU, I was reading about the majors being like art, fashion design, interior design. And when I think that, I don't necessarily think athletics.
That's why their slogan is be artist, be athlete, be both. That's the school that gives you the opportunity to be talented both on and off the field. And I'll be honest, I was blown away at the things that just my athletes alone created outside of the field. It's truly one of a kind student athletes that go there. It was truly something special to see how talented our young gals were.
In terms of the creations, what's a creation that one of your student athletes made that kind of stands out to you?
Our center fielder, our fastest base runner, she actually just last year broke the record career in triples at ArtU. She's a professional model. I'm talking like Nike, Lululemon, Outdoor Spaces, big time brands. And there was actually an UGG campaign where she was the huge poster in the UGG window of downtown San Francisco, like the store. It's so surreal to see that on such a stage. It was awesome.
I imagine walking by that, you're like, hey, she plays for me.
Crazy. I mean, I would be on the Lululemon app just casually shopping and I'm like, oh, there's Kylie.
What was the reason for you to kind of take a step away from coaching, at least for a short time?
I came to a point where I truly realized that I had just spent 20 plus years dedicating my life to a sport. And it was, what else are you good at? What else are you passionate about? And the stress of the job is overwhelming. And I think a lot of coaches would probably agree that you put yourself to the side because you are just thinking about others so much and what you can do for others to help them, to be there for them. I just kind of got to the point where I'm like, who's looking out for me and my mental health and my well-being? And I just kind of came to a point where I'm like, am I going to dedicate the rest of my life to this? Is this what I'm going to do? And that might mean a lot of sacrifices. Am I going to have a family? Is this what I want? I did some self-evaluation. I just want to try something else. I want to do something else.
Do you ever foresee a time where you might get back into softball coaching?
I'll be frank, I do not. I really don't. It's a part of my life that I'm super grateful for, but it's not something that I want to go back to, and it's not for me anymore.
Before we fully leave softball here, I do want to talk a little bit about your time at Solano Community College because you were incredibly successful there. How did you initially end up getting hired for the job?
So at the time, I had just finished my master's degree. I was working for a travel ball organization out of West Sac. I was kind of like their director of ops. I helped coach on several different teams. I gave lessons, helped with their college recruiting program. And I knew like when I took that job too, that I wanted to be a college coach. That was my stepping stone. It was a fabulous time for me for networking. I met a ton of people when I had that job, and it's so weird how it worked out. I had just came in one day and I know what I want to pursue, and I need to like dedicate myself fully to it. And I gave my 2-week notice, and within, I kid you not, that week and a half, the Solano head coaching job had been posted on Indeed, and I applied, and within like 2 weeks I was interviewed, and it took them forever to get back to me. I mean, like I waited for maybe like 6 weeks because that year they didn't have a season. It was the first time they'd ever not fielded a team in 2017. So it wasn't like they were in a huge rush to make the decision, but ultimately I got the job. I was so excited. When I look back, I think that time of my life and becoming a head coach, I was so happy. It was what I felt like I had worked so hard to become, and it was coming into fruition.
So you're taking over a team that didn't play the year before. How hard was it to get players who had played there to come back, let's say the season before, and to basically recruit a whole new team?
That's the beauty of California Community College. You need to recruit double-digit amount of players, reload every single year. And it was starting from the ground was really challenging. I got handed one piece of paper, like in a little Excel sheet with 10 numbers on it. They were like, here's a head start. And I was like, okay. So I just started calling those numbers previously. I mean, I would get other people's numbers from the girls that got back to me. I started reaching out to every travel ball coach I knew, all the local high schools, just tried to use as many connections as possible. And at the same time, I was also building my staff. And Taryn was such a joy to work with. We had so much fun. At the time, she was choosing between being the assistant with me and only getting a stipend, or moving and being the assistant coach at St. Louis College of Pharmacy, where they would pay for her housing and she would go to school. At the time, she really wanted to be a physician's assistant. That was the dream she was aspiring, but also wanted to follow her heart tugs for coaching. And she ultimately chose to coach with me and make hardly any money and accept the grind. I couldn't have done it alone. She was a great help. And then 2 Solano alums, and Megan Alexander and Erica Vigil, and just like being surrounded by like such great people was so helpful. There was obviously some other coaches in the beginning that helped get me off the ground, but you just got to rely on who you know and who you can contact and who they know and who they can contact. As soon as it spread to new coach was hired and they're going to be ready to go, a lot of that stuff helps too. But I just tried to hit the ground running, and I was so enthusiastic. I was so excited, and I know that drove me a lot.
In terms of the enthusiasm and the excitement, because eventually there's stress, and when you win, everybody expects you to keep winning and keep winning. Did that excitement wane?
The expectation from my AD at Solano was definitely like softball program needs to be great, but I was always really confident that we were going to be great. Every year we were bringing even better players, even more kids. Our alum base was really strong. It was always like a positive kind of pressure in that environment. I really, truly loved working there. The only reason why I left was because I was just moving up. I was never full-time at Solano. They did everything they could for me. As an adjunct professor, I was at my fullest load as that I could be, but come to this point where I want to make X amount of money. I want to be full-time. I want benefits. And that was solely like the only reason why I left. It was such a wonderful experience. And I was so heavily supported there, and I had great facilities. Our field was beautiful and it was taken care of. And I have nothing but wonderful things to say about Solano.
Your last season at Solano, COVID hit. Could you kind of describe in terms of, will the season be played, will it not be played? Kind of take me through that whole process.
It took a while. but it was very obvious there was not going to be the rest of the season. Just the legalities and the logistics of it wasn't going to happen. But it was such a bummer because we were doing so well. And I know we would have finished out really strong that year, but we were all just trying to keep each other up and trying to stay positive. But I think realistically for me, the season wasn't going to finish. Everyone around the country was doing the same thing, and California community system wasn't going to be any different.
So after that season, you ended up at ArtU. How do you form relationships with players during COVID? Because you can't exactly meet, workouts, practices, all that stuff's not happening.
As soon as I got hired, it was reaching out to players, scheduling FaceTime conversations. So every single kid that was already on the roster, the first time they met me was over a FaceTime call. They got to see me. I was tangible. I was real. Just trying to build that connection right away. There was a local girl. At the time, I was living in Vallejo, and she was from Walnut Creek. So we were able to meet up over the summer and get coffees. They actually allowed us to work out in COVID as long as they signed the waivers, and she did. I would work out with her. And honestly, Randy was a really core piece of that team. And me being able to meet up with her and build a rapport with her for the first 3 months before actually hitting campus, I think really helped the dynamic because she was ultimately viewed as a captain, and they had weekly FaceTimes with me, and I just tried to connect with them virtually as much as possible. I would host team Zoom meetings just to talk shop or like go over anything logistic wise or anything that we needed to do, talk over as a team. But it was just a lot of electronic communication as much as possible.
When students are allowed back on campus, what were the workout protocols that you as a coach had to adhere to that maybe limited what you would normally do, let's say, when you were at Solano or even as a player?
Right out the gate, like only small groups. We didn't get to work out as a full team for a long time, which as a team sport is tough. Individual work is fabulous to break down mechanics, but there's nothing like a full team defense or getting to do front toss in front of your whole team and maybe show off a little bit and create some hoorah and all that. But it was challenging. It was a lot of small group stuff, always wearing masks during workouts, during conditioning, which I know would be for me really challenging as an athlete. At the time, like, truly my mindset was, I'm just so grateful I get to be with my athletes because there's other schools like the Division II California College Athletics Association, the CCAA, where it's got like San Francisco State, Monterey Bay, Sonoma State, like all really great softball schools that are local to us. They didn't get to play at all. I just remember thinking like, wow, this is so cool. I'm a part of one of the only universities that I know of around here that we're getting to do stuff. It was awesome at the time to be able to do anything.
Do you feel that it helped build the team chemistry and the fact that you were all going through the situation together?
I definitely think so. And we were all in this together. And for the most part, all 3 years, every team, although they were a little bit different, they were a very emotional group and would find the camaraderie in the small things and value like the little things and take a lot of weight in it. So I definitely saw that we built together on that and grew together.
Do you still watch softball? I know you left coaching around a year ago or so, or are you kind of taking a hiatus from it?
I did not tune in really at all this spring. I had followed the St. Mary's College program a little bit this year because I'm friends with the coaching staff and they had a really fabulous year and I'm just so happy for them. And so I would follow their scores and see how they did. But other than that, I did not tune in to any college softball games until the regionals, when pretty much all 64 teams are on ESPN. It's really hard for me not to tune in, and they have all the games on at once. I eat that up. I get to watch 5 games at once. Are you kidding me? But I really did tune out until just recently.
Is it nice just to be a fan again?
Oh, absolutely. It's so funny you say that because I just made that joke to my dad. Oh, I'm just sitting here watching, and it's so weird. It's just a different feeling.
Growing up, did you watch baseball and other sports with your dad? Was he a sports fan as well?
Oh, absolutely. We watched everything: NASCAR, golf, football, baseball, like you name it, it was on. I've witnessed it. I've experienced it. We watched it all.
When you were younger, who were some of the athletic idols that you looked up to?
Barry Bonds was a big one. And I like the Broncos because I was obsessed with horses growing up. But honestly, I was just such a dad's girl. And if it was on and I got to hang out with him, I was invested. It didn't matter what it was.
With your grandfather being a Major League Baseball All-Star, did he ever give you any kind of tips about hitting or fielding or anything like that?
My grandpa always would try to, same with my dad. My grandpa would try to talk to me over the phone and, well, if you do this and do this and do this. And I'm like, okay. They always had something to say.
In general, not necessarily just meaning with the athletic world, how competitive is your family?
I'd say we're competitive, like healthy competitive, not hyper. And my dad and I go bowling a lot, or like he moved to Washington and lives on a lake and we go fishing and it's like, who's the first to get a fish? Or like we also play a lot of Yahtzee. That might probably be the most out of hand thing. It's always something, but always in a healthy, fun way.
Who's the better bowler?
My dad's really good. I've only been able to beat him on his bad days.
Well, hopefully you get to make up for that in Yahtzee.
Yes. Last time we played, I did not. I brutally lost to both him and my stepmom, but sometimes I do make that up there.
I will say full disclosure here, I had never played Yahtzee until last year.
Oh, it is so fun. It's the best.
Away from the athletic realm, what do you do for fun?
I have a dog. She turns 9 next month, so I've had her for a long time. She's a big part of my life. We go on lots of adventures. We went all over the place in the Bay Area. Like she's gone on all kinds of hikes and done all kinds of stuff. So she takes up a lot of my time. I'm really into fashion and clothes, whether that be like creation or thrifting. I do some reselling online and I'm pretty good at it. When I invest a lot of time into it, I'm pretty successful and I really like doing that. I enjoy that. I'm also a PE teacher and I love fitness. I love staying healthy. It's always going to be a part of my life. I go to hot yoga probably 3 to 4 times a week. I always feel a little off kilter when I haven't gone enough. And also, like, since I moved up here, I have some family up here and it's really nice to spend time with them. I'm a big foodie. I love to eat. I love going to restaurants. I love experiences. I love trying new spots. I'm also a pretty good cook. So that's pretty much how I spend a majority of my time if I'm not working.
How did you get into the fashion side? Was that from your time at Art U, or has that been a passion you've had for a long time?
Oh, my whole life. We'd go to a softball tournament and then my mom and I would find the nearby mall and I would be like walking the mall in my dirt-filled slider shorts. And it wasn't until like past 6 or 7 years I really got into thrifting and just finding things and sourcing things that way and then even reselling and making some profit off it, that kind of stuff. I've always been really interested in it. When I was making my decision to go to school, if I could sincerely go back and make a truly informed decision, I would have gone into fashion merchandising. I would have gone into design. Besides sports, besides fitness and working out, and that is by far my passion.
As somebody who is a self-described skinflint, the word thrifting is music to my ears.
Yeah, that's me. Like, I am allergic to retail. I look at prices of things and I am outraged. I cannot believe how expensive, especially clothing is, and just how much extra clothing we have in the world, but we're still making, we're still producing. It's crazy to me.
For me, because I am not a huge shopper or anything, but I created something just for me when I go to the grocery store. I call it the coupon envelope, where I put all my coupons in and I will not go to the store unless I can either use the coupons or find things on sale.
I love that. That's how life should be.
And also, I'm a big foodie as well. I love finding new holes in the wall type places. What's your favorite kind of cuisine?
I joke about this and I really don't have like a better term for it, but I am like a dumpster raccoon. I like everything. Sushi, burgers, Mexican. There's not anything that I won't try. I'm definitely the friend that I let everyone else figure it out because I know wherever we go, I'm going to be happy. Like, I'm going to find something. I'm really low key when it comes to food, but I've really been on a big sushi kick lately, trying new different rolls or that kind of stuff, but truly open. I love everything.
So are you like me, and do you look at menus at all before you go, or do you just say to heck with it?
I'm both. It just depends on my mood. Sometimes if I overlook at the menu, I find myself panic ordering. I don't know if that's a trait that you do, but if I just think about it too much, I end up getting something I really don't want. So it just depends. I always like a preface, like, oh, what are they known for is typically my question. I've been on both sides of that coin.
Oftentimes I find myself in a situation where I want two things, and so I'll ask whoever the server is which one they would pick, and then I'll think to myself, maybe I don't want that. Now what do I do?
You have to live in your regret. I'm sorry. But it's funny, I do that too. What do you think? I hope that they tell me honestly. And say if I go to Starbucks or we have Dutch Brothers out here, I like it better than Starbucks. I've done it so many times where I just drive up and I'm like, you pick.
My food palette isn't as wide as yours. If I do a you pick, I could be in trouble.
Yeah. And then if I really don't like it, it's like, oh, well, I won't get that again. It's not the end of the world.
Going back to fashion here for a second, for somebody like me who knows nothing about fashion, what should I look for in terms of a style?
Well, defining your style is totally up to you. And my experience, it took a long time to define mine. I even still sometimes buy things and I'm like, why did I buy that? I'm never going to wear that. You just have to get really specific. And I think it always starts with fit. If something fits you really nicely, it just really elevates your look, regardless of the style itself. So that's always the number one thing. And I think it's like if I hold it in my hand and if it's not absolutely, yes, I need this, I do not buy it. If there's like any doubt, any sort of uncertainty, I don't buy it. I've gotten to a point now where I just look at things and I can tell whether it's going to fit perfectly on me. And it's not just like my body, like my sister, I go shopping for her constantly. I find her stuff all the time and I can just tell by looking at it. That's going to fit her. And as far as creating your style and understanding your style, I think you just have to do some research and you start with pieces that you really, really love and you build around them. You'd be surprised. You really don't need too much and you can like mix and match, create things that you really like and that you're always grabbing for. There's nothing worse to have a bunch of stuff that you don't even reach for or that you'll know that you're never going to wear. But it takes time. It really does. Like I said, I even still buy things and I'm like, why did I buy that?
How much does color matter in that style, or is it really truly more about fit and not so much what the color is?
Oh no, color matters for sure for me. And especially like I've been a lot of different hair colors and I was platinum blonde for years. And then I just recently like dyed my hair really, really dark brown. And I have a whole new colors that I wear now that I couldn't wear before. And then I used to wear yellow a lot. And like now I could not wear yellow. And I think your complexion and hair color and notice too, if you go shopping, black is hardly ever on sale because people buy black. It's always the bright patterns or the big colors that typically go on sale, and you just have to be weary. It's like when you pick it up, am I really going to be drawn to the style of this or the color of this? Got another time or what?
I would say black's never on sale because most people find it slimming, and with how most people, I would say, view themselves, that's why it's not on sale.
It doesn't need to be, right? Because people buy it.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Okay, great question. I think professionally, I'm a high school PE teacher. I'm also the athletic director at a brand new high school. Like we literally just opened last August and it's been cool for me. The physical education program, it's mine. How I want to create it and how I want to do it. It's hard for me to let go of sports. I do see myself in 10 years as some kind of athletic director, perhaps at the college level, working my way back up. I'm not really sure. I hope to have a family. But yeah, that's kind of how I see myself right now.
Well, starting the athletic program and being athletic director, how did your time at Solano, when you had to basically start from the ground up as well, help you for this position?
I'd say like everywhere I've been at, I've worked at has helped me be ready for this position. My athletic director at Solano, Eric, he knew that was something that I would want perhaps in the future. And I would always ask him questions. He was such a wealth of knowledge. He would always share with me so much. And I'd be a part of things and get to look over his shoulder, see what he was doing, what he was working on. And I'll be frank, the high school level is completely different. I still think athletics and being an AD, a teacher, coach, it's all about relationships and who you know. And a lot of it too, as an athletic director, high school level at least, is you're dealing with parents. How can you meet this parent where they're at? Just like I talked about in the beginning, and that's such a big part of it. It's all prepared me for where I'm at now and for my future.
How do you navigate the balance of what's best for the school?
I think as a coach, you are representing the university and you care for the well-being of the university, but the athlete always comes first, no matter what. And what they need and their well-being is always the utmost importance. And I hope all my athletes saw that because that's genuine and they were always number one. They should be.
Speaking of the athlete being number one, mental health is a popular topic, probably a lot more so now than when you were an athlete. How important is that to make sure that that gets addressed?
Oh my gosh, it is so important. I'm glad you mentioned this because it is something I'm really passionate about. One of my really good friends, coach I worked alongside at RU, is now the assistant at St. Mary's. She started her own company called More Than Your Sport, and it talks all about this specifically and the value and the importance to separate yourself and how you see yourself and self-value outside of your sport. You are just truly so much bigger than what you can do on a field. And when I played, I dealt with severe anxiety, depression. I had no idea what those terms meant. I had no idea that I was living through it, experience it in such a grand form as well. It wasn't on a low end. I was really going through some things. I had felt significant pressure from my coaches. I didn't feel supported. It was a lot. And I am so happy that it is now not only being talked about, because it's one thing to talk about it, but universities are actually implementing things to help our student athletes navigate this, because it is so challenging. It is so hard. And it is so daunting when you feel like you are alone and there's no one there to help you. And it's wonderful to see the difference and shift in the importance of the mental health of our student athletes.
Whether you're the AD, the coach, whatever role you're in, how important is it to gain the trust of a player, a student, so they can communicate to you that they might be having a mental health issue so you can have a frank discussion?
Oh, it is so important. It is number one. Like I said, from the get-go, relationships, everything is about that. And if you can create that space of comfortability and vulnerability for your athlete, they're not only going to listen to you and work for you, they're going to buy in, and they might share things with you so that you can have a better understanding of seeing them. And it's a really important position to be in. And to create that space is so pivotal. It's not even funny.
Do you ever have a former player call you and just say, "Hey, coach, I'm having an issue, whether on the field, off the field, can we talk?"
I did when I was a coach. I think it's a little bit easier to share in vulnerable moments. I've had a player reach out to me after we were done working together and share some things. But for the most part now, if I'm reconnecting or they're reaching out, it's to celebrate them and their accomplishments, or to let me know how well things are going, or, hey, I worked on this and now it's this. And just really, like I said, to celebrate them. And so I'm really grateful for that. But there have been circumstances where athletes have reached out just to connect in a way that might not be as positive.
In terms of celebrating those good moments, what's it like to have a former player call you and tell you that? Because in a way, it's almost like a mentor-mentee relationship.
For example, our muralist who's helping right now at the school, I met her in 2016. She had just finished her high school softball season, and I was her travel ball coach before she went and played at Coe College, which is a really, really good California community college softball program up here in the Sacramento area. And we had created that relationship, that dynamic. And when I got the head coaching job at Solano, we played against each other with her at Sierra. Then as I moved on and got the coaching job at RU, she was wrapping up her bachelor's degree at Sac State. And I knew that she had some eligibility left, and I had reached out and recruited her to RU and to play for me for another 2 seasons. And now she just graduated with her master's degree, and she was showing me her portfolio, her lookbook, and it's this beautiful creation, hardcover of her whole 2-year project of being a master's degree student. And it's so incredible. And I couldn't help just get so emotional flipping through the pages, because I've known her since she was 17. And now she's 25 and getting her master's degree and getting paid. My school's paying her to create this project with our kids, and she is pursuing her dream. And I just know her through sport. It's crazy how rewarding it can feel to witness that process and then see their success. It's so fun.
Nikki, I want to thank you so much for joining the I Play Too podcast today and talking about your softball career, coaching at Solano, RU, now becoming an athletic director. Thank you so much, and continued success.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate you and your time and for having me on the show.